One.
Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. Tonight we'll be continuing with the Analects. We'll be starting book 14. We will have one or two readings of the text, and then we'll go to Jason. We'll open it up for comments after that. We ask that you keep your comments to the text, and then we'll have more of a free-flowing discussion. We'll leave time for that at the end. So with that, would anybody like to read their version of the Analect?
Anyone not driving.
Anyone not driving. And Jason, just to be clear, what ones will we be covering? Did you put that in the chat already?
Yeah, put it in the
yes,
chat.
you did.
Let's read the 1, 2,
Okay.
3, 4. Only reason is they are all short. So.
All right. So I guess
I
that
can read the Eno.
Okay.
Is it
Do you
is
want,
it my turn?
do you want me to read
Oh,
first? Do you want me?
okay.
I'll read first. Yeah.
Okay, read first.
Zan, if I'm saying that right correctly, asked what was shameful. The master said, when good government prevails in a state, to be thinking only of salary, and when bad government prevails, to be thinking in the same way, only of salary. This is shameful. When the love of superiority, boasting, resentments, and covetousness are repressed, this may be deemed perfect virtue, the master said. This may be regarded as the achievement of what is difficult, but I do not know that it is to be deemed perfect virtue. The master said, the scholar, number 2, the master said, the scholar who cherishes the love of comfort is not fit to be deemed a scholar. Number 3, the master said, when good government prevails in a state, language may be lofty and bold, and actions the same. When bad government prevails, the actions may be lofty and bold, but the language may be with some reserve. Number 4, the master said, the virtuous will be sure to speak. Oh,
that's actually number
okay.
4.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No.
Oh, that's
number 3.
No, that's so that's number 3.
Yeah, because there's a depend on what version. Okay, so there's a 2 kind. I follow my versions. So okay, so what was that? Leggy. I follow Leggy's. Okay, so you should pick one more. Yeah.
Okay.
My mistake.
Sorry about
one
that.
more.
Oh no worries. The master said the virtuous will be sure to speak correctly, but those whose speech is good may not always be virtuous. Men of principle are sure to be bold, but those who are bold may not always be men of principle. And so I turn it over to Quan for his translation.
Okay, so the Eno translation 14.1. Xian asked about shame. The master said that when the Tao prevails in a state, take office. To take office when the Tao does not prevail, that is shame. Overbearing, boastful, resentful. To wish to be none of these, is that Ran? The master said, it is difficult. As for Ran, I don't know. 14.2. The master said, a gentleman who is attached to the amenities of his home is not worthy of being called a gentleman. 14.3. When the Tao prevails in the state, speak as though in danger, act as though in danger. When the Tao does not prevail in the state, act as those in danger and make your speech compliant. 14.4, the master said, a man who possesses virtue always has teachings to impart. But a man with teachings to impart does not always possess virtue. The man of Ran would be valorous, but valorous men are not always Ran.
Thank you, Kwang. Joe, can you read the 14.3 one more time on your version?
Yeah, sure. The master said, when good government prevails in a state, language may be lofty and bold, and actions the same. When bad government prevails, the actions may be lofty and bold, but language may be with some reserve.
The language is faulty. Oh, okay.
Lofty, like lofty.
Lofty.
Hello,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, because that's a key difference. Then
It's a pretty big.
pretty much different. Okay, so it's this one is I group these four together. Only reason is they all short. Okay, that's it. So that's all different. But the subject there's probably no new subject in these four. Okay, so the title is 现问 and the 现 okay traditionally Chinese always use the first two character or three, okay, as the name of the chapter. So just 1 minute. Okay. Just the name for the chapter. So that means this one is Xian. Xian is a person, and his name is Yuan Si. Okay, and if you want to just make a mark on book 6, okay, he worked for Confucius in the Confucius household employee, and the Confucius want to give him 900 measure of grain, and Yuan Xian or Yuan Si said, "Oh, that's too much." And the Confucius say, "Oh no, if it's too much, you can give to your neighborhood." Okay, something like this. So it's related to the grain. And then if you pay attention on the translation, okay, so the translation Xian asks about Xian. Okay, I think this subject Xian, okay, we talked about last week. And Master said, when the state is in doubt, work for the government. When the state is not in doubt, it is shameful to work for the government. So the message is consistent in many places, right? Confucius always believed if the government is in doubt, that means the state is doing in the right way, you work for the government, okay? But if government not in the right way, okay, and you work for government, it's shameful. Okay, so you don't work for the bad government or disordered society. So it's related to grain. In Eno's translation, it translates as working in the office. And then when Joe read his translation, said working for the salary, but the actual word is here. Okay, that's great. So at that time, the salary from the government is give you grant. That's why sometimes translate as taking office, sometimes translate as having salary, a salary. Yeah. So and I translate as work for government. Okay, and then that's the difference. Some translator or some interpreter will put this two, the second part, as a different chapter. Okay, but it's the same person as we assume the same person. Xian keep asking after talking about working for the government. Okay, he asked when one is not criticizing, boasting, complaining, or coveting, does he opposes人? The master said it is difficult, but I don't know whether it is 人. So same way, Confucius, if you go back to book 12, okay, Confucius talk about to control oneself and the practice according to ritual is 人, two part, right? You need to control yourself and the practice according to rituals. Okay, so when Yuan Xian or Xian asked about, he talking about only not criticizing, not boasting, not complaining, not coveting. All these things just control yourself. Okay, but only do the first part. That's why Confucius doing this is difficult, but I'm not sure whether it is right. I believe because the second part you have done that, you haven't done this. So that's Confucius' answer. So that's chapter 1. Chapter 2, the master said, a learned man who pursues a comfortable life is not worthy of being a learned man. So here we talk about learned man, 士. I think sometimes we translate as a scholar, sometimes we translate as a gentleman, and in my translation, I will consistently use the word learned man. Okay, I think we talked about this last week. Everyone who study, like today, you got a college degree, okay, you can consider yourself as a learned man or learned people, learned person, and then during that time, you can call yourself 士, and then Confucius gives 士 some other than the academic standard, also give them the moral standard. So that means you must have some aspiration, some contribution to your society. If you just get a college degree to pursue a comfortable life, it's not worthy to be called a learned man. Okay, so you need to have some social responsibility if you want to take today's interpretation. Chapter 3, the master said, when the state is in doubt, speak nobly and act nobly. When the state is not in doubt, act nobly but speak carefully. Okay, so here's the word 微言, 微行. Okay, that's why 微 means dangerous. That's why Eno's translation talk about, you translate dangerous, speak dangerously or something like this, use danger, which I think that's, I would call wrong, because it doesn't mean dangerous here, because in ancient Chinese, you are talking about you stay in a very high mountain, it feels dangerous, okay? And here, 微, okay, doesn't mean dangerous, okay? It means high or lofty. So these two words put together, speak nobly, I mean in the lofty, okay, and act lofty or nobly. So that means you do your work, you say something. And then when the state is not in doubt, you act nobly, but speak carefully. Okay, so to understand this way, I find a better way to understand is when the state is in order, within doubt, you speak and act high pitch, okay? And then when the state is not in doubt, you still act high pitch, but you speak in low pitch because you want to keep quiet, don't want to cause problem, but you still do the right thing, okay? But you don't say the right thing because you may cause danger. That's my understanding, and then I think that's what Confucius meant. And then I also, because I go through the whole book, I find out book 14, it starts with 宪, okay, 袁宪, this person, okay. So it may very possible the whole book is compiled or recorded by 袁宪, okay, by this disciple. And I find out very interesting is this book always some argue against Taoism, okay? So you can put the Taoism thinking in your mind. So here, instead of Taoism, or when the state is not in order, the Taoists will just kind of recluse, right? Will become a hermit. But in Confucius' teaching, you still need to do something to help the society, but you keep quiet. I think that's what Confucius is talking about in this chapter. Last one, chapter 4. The master said, those who have virtues must have words to say. Those who have words to say don't necessarily have virtues. The Ren people must be brave, and the brave people don't necessarily have Ren. So here, Confucius put virtue and the word together, and that you must have virtue, then you can have something to say. But not everybody say keep talking, have virtue, but only the virtuous people can have something worthy to say. Okay. And the same comparison with Ren and the brave. If you are brave, if you are Ren people, you must be brave people. But bravers must be brave people. But if you are brave, it's not necessary you are a Ren people. So that's the relation put together in the Confucius. So it's a little bit long, and we put 4 together, and we'll turn to Amman. And I see David and Ralph have hands up, and we'll go to you after Amman. Yeah, thank you.
I'll be brief in consideration of other people having thoughts that they want to share. I will say thematically, I think these 4 link, and I think the link becomes obvious when you look at the idea of Ren, virtue, the better a person, whatever that version of the better person may be, is not contextual. You're not a better person because you are in the context of X or Y, because the state is in Tao or the state is out of Tao, because you are brave, because you have your virtue, you have your character, you are Ren, independent of context. But Ren has consequences that should feed into whatever context you are. So if you are in a properly Ren state or Ran state, then Ren should compel you to go be a part of it and be a beneficial part of it. If you are a Ren person and the occasion demands bravery, it should rise forth out of you. So Ren has consequences, but the context in which you exist does not determine your virtue, your Ren, or your true character. I think that's thematically what's at work between these 4. As far as the anti-Taoism sort of bent of this is fundamental to, it could be spun that way after years. I could absolutely see it, but this is as much a part of Confucius' overall concept of your duty to be pro-social. That is a fundamental duty that anyone who wants to be a functioning human being has. And according to Confucius, is to be engaged socially, be pro-social. And yes, that retreat that became vogue amongst Taoist hermits and later Buddhist hermits was really anathema to Confucians. They saw that as selling out, as copying out, as shirking your inherent moral duty as a member of the human race.
Thanks, Amon. So we will go to David.
I think Ralph has a hands up.
Yeah, Ralph, did you have your hand up? I did see that.
Well, I did. I guess it's been partially answered. Yeah, I wasn't sure when the state is in Tao. What is Tao? Does Tao have a particular meaning? I guess you're saying it's not a Taoist Tao.
Okay.
It's a Confucianist Tao.
Can I tackle this one, Jason?
Please.
So
Yeah, that's a very confusing.
Yeah, Tao is a word that just exists within the Chinese lexicon, and it simply can be translated as pathway, discourse, method, exit. In fact, if you see exit signs, you see Tao all over it in China. But it was used polemically, first by Confucians to indicate the right way something should be done. And then later by Taoists to indicate the actual or natural way in which things are occurring. And so, although it's the same word, the context or the connotation is slightly different. And the similarity I used in English is we can use a term like justice, which is fairly ambivalent, but may have very, very different meanings depending on the person who's utilizing it. Same thing with Dao.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think the translation, they translate as 邦有道. Okay, I just translate literally. That means the state is in Dao. But another way of, you will say, better way to translate is say state is in order. Okay, it's okay. Or Bang state has no Dao means the state is in disorder situation. So it doesn't take us literally Taoism Dao. That means doing in the, just like Amon said, the state is doing in the right way. So
our translation also puts Tao in as the word Tao. And I think that our resorting to some word like order is perilous. It's not dangerous, but it's perilous. Because a state in order that's a military, repressive, authoritarian state has a high degree of order. And you'd be mistaking that for this. And Tao is more like saying, are you going along the way? Wink, the way, you know, the way, the intelligent way human beings should be going. So many spiritual traditions call it the way. That's a good, you know, but even without that word, doubt, let it be a little mysterious. But okay, so we know what it means, wink. I think it means sort of wink. Anyway, what I was going to say, that was my attempt to contribute to that discussion about how hard it is with words, right? I admire you. It's hard. The first, number one, and it was interesting. I thought about, because our translation, I think, is a little dull. It says, when the government is, when good government prevails, to be thinking only of your salary, and when the bad government prevails, to be thinking in the same way only of your salary, that's all shameful. I don't think, right, it's really talking about salary, and your translations indicate it's really a little different, I think. And I'm hearing it more like this. In fact, we've had an example in the past 10 years in the United States, people working for the government, and then the government sort of became taken over. And I'm thinking, you know, not being political, but make an example, the Trump administration, there were people who felt, hey, this is not going the way. This is dangerous. And they did not give him messages, and they did not give him codes, and they didn't tell him about things that were happening, because they didn't follow the literal, don't work for the government. They stopped working for this government the way it was going. So literally, they were not working for this government within the government, although employed by it, right? You know what I'm saying? They weren't doing what the boss said, if that's the government. So I see this would totally harmonize with that if we read it a certain way. And it wasn't just the military that were doing this, or the people in the White House. There were scientists preserving the EPA databases because commands came down to say, destroy these databases, you know, and NOAA should stop watching the climate and stuff like that. So there was a broad response along these lines that when things aren't going the right way, you don't perform and you don't speak loudly about what you're doing, disrupting the commands from above, but you quietly go about doing the right thing, and you're kind of humbly enacting your virtue within your rights. That's what made sense to me as a historical current example of some of these forces. Thanks.
Thanks for the input, David. Very much appreciated. Fun.
Those four paragraphs for me is the practical expression of paragraph 2.4 about the epistemological development, precisely because for 1, 2, and 3 we speak about Tao and Ran and Di, okay, about justice. So you have the 3 lines of the upper trigrams, or number 4, 5, 6, and having some consequences on what you say or what you do, meaning with your intellect, your heart, and your actions. So having consequences on the lower trigram precisely, 1, 2, and 3, meaning 1, sense of perception, 2, intellect, and 3, the heart mind. So it's a very interesting way to come back to 12 chapters before, but being more centered on the practical business of government, if you want. I stop here.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I've actually found these chapters have become more practical as we've gone on. Jason.
Yeah, I just when David talked about it, on the very first one, right? Talk about when the state is in doubt and work for the government. When the state is not in doubt, it's shameful to work for the government. And I do see during the 2020, the Donald Trump tried to wreck the election, and a lot of his minister resign, right? That's kind of the example, okay, for the situation. You disagree and you think that's wrong, but you have no way, or you should, according to ritual, you should not fight against your boss. So in this situation, you should resign. Okay, I think that's one of the practice, example. This one. That's all I have to say.
But on Jason, on that point, weren't the people who stayed because they would?
That would be called shameful, right?
No. They didn't want to give up the ability to act with the power they had for good.
Well, that's your.
When you leave the government, you're surrendering all responsibility for political action, and I think it's a higher calling to say, I will stay and do what I can, in a sense, working for the government, but not working for this governmental direction.
I got your point.
There's a that duty ethic that we often.
There's no one. There's no one answer for all. So and everyone have, but just based on this sentence. Okay, I just based on this sentence.
Morning, Quan.
I wanted to say two things, but David's point demands a response, which is you may be correct, but there's a little bit of antiquation in applying this in this context when you think back to Confucius' time. To be in the court of anyone in Confucius' time was to sign up for a generation of rule under this way. There wasn't going to be some transition of government in some way in the next 10, 15, 20 years. And so you were making a commitment that was most of your working life, most likely. And so when Confucius says it's shameful to be a part of that, it's because you really would be necessarily instrumental in running their agenda. There's no competing voice to turn to say, okay, they have a different way of doing this, or so that antiquation means Confucius' point stands for his
not
time.
This very minute.
It stands for his time, but I do see your point, and I do take your point, and I think in modern context makes a lot more sense. The thing that I was originally putting my hand up for, though, was something Jason said about that sort of scholarly title, and he used the analogy of a college degree. It was something I couldn't let escape, because our 4-year completion of university is awarded a bachelor's degree. The reason it's called that was because young men who obtained that education were now fit to enter polite society and be married off. In much the same way, the status of being a shi meant you were fit for this class, this echelon of people. And so I wanted to draw attention to that parallel, because like the idea that now you can be awarded a BA and it's a technical degree that you're going to go and get a job with, and you may not have learned anything about virtue or character or development at all. You just really learned how to code very well. Confucius is making the argument that wasn't enough. The technical, education, that wasn't enough. You needed that character that was attached to the development of the process that we deemed bachelors in the West fit to be married off, and he deemed sure.
Excellent. Thank you, Man. We'll go to Quan, and then
Okay, so I want to come back to the paragraph 14.4 about the man who possesses virtue always has teachings to impart, but the man with teachings to impart does not always possess virtue. And the man of run will be valorous, but valorous men are not always run. Okay, and that is at the center of the Confucian teaching, meaning that Confucianism does not promote the idea that fake it until you make it, okay, because you cannot fake it. And it's precisely 1, 2, 3 precisely, okay? The sense perception, the intellect, and the heart mind. At that level of the lower trigram, you might fake some stuff, and maybe you would be capable to convince certain people that you made it. But what is promoted within Confucianism, that is that you keep on your epistemological journey and your learning till you reach to the run qualities, meaning the upper trigram at the 5th position and corresponding to the timeless form of goodness. And precisely that timeless form of goodness corresponds to 2 cardinal virtues, which are valor and humanity precisely. So if you truly have that accomplishment, that achievement at the upper trigram because of your deep understanding, the cardinal virtues corresponding to Raden, humanity and valor, would manifest spontaneously and not because you fake it until you make it, okay? Because that is precisely the center of the epistemological journey, not to fake it, but rather to achieve that level of timeless form when expressed spontaneously as the corresponding cardinal virtues. And here I'm coming back also to the mythology of the Chinese ruling class. In the mythology of the Chinese ruling class, as I had the occasion to say many times in the past, is that the true gentleman having a run will attract the xian people, meaning the worthy and the capable people who will serve him to uphold the state. So it's related to 14.1, okay? So when the Tao prevails in a state, it means essentially that at the head of the state, you have gentlemen. And because you have gentlemen, it is honorable to take office, to serve them. But if you don't have gentlemen at the head of the state, it would be shameful to serve them because you wouldn't serve xiao ren, people not having virtue, having their own, let's say, geopolitical agenda, which is not necessarily virtuous. I stop here.
thank you. I actually wanted to comment about that, like with sophistry and things along those lines. But we'll go to Mark, and then we'll. I'm sorry.
What was the term Quan said? Sao Ran?
Xiao ren, the petty man,
small
the country
man.
of the gentleman.
Yeah, I always translate as a small man. Okay, so that's the opposite of 君子. Okay, so that's.
Oh, it sounded like Lord of the Rings. I didn't know.
Small man. That's the way I translate.
It's the
Yeah, Xiao ren was a very powerful Xiao ren.
Mark, be careful. You're on the road.
Okay, thanks, Joseph. You hear me okay?
You're a little bit. Go ahead and speak again. Let's see.
Okay, here's my question.
There we go.
How do you know when the state is in a state of doubt?
If I heard Mark right, what he said is, how do you know if the state is in a state of Tao? Is that correct, Mark?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank
Among you want to answer, or Kwang, you want to answer?
Well,
Um,
I'm bold enough and cocky enough to say that if you are a gentleman, you should know who is a gentleman. Okay, only a diamond can acknowledge another diamond. And that's part of the mythology of the Chinese ruling class.
Yeah, it's kind of a we can smell our own. But to know whether or not a state is in Tao, you know, he never really like sets that down. He says what the trappings of it would look like. People will flock there, it would be fruitful, people will be learning, etc. But there is an element of that could be a fabrication or it could be a facade. And so it is part of your duty as a junshi or a shi or a learned man to do a real in-depth investigation to recognize whether the state you are in and how it's being ran, if it is genuinely sticking to the right way. And there are some very obvious things. The right people are the ones doing the right rituals, not wrong people doing the wrong rituals, etc. They all follow them accordingly. But then there's also deeper levels than that to be looked too closely. Is somebody profiteering from this? And if so, does this house of cards just collapse on itself? So the onus is on you, dear employee, to interrogate the business ethics of your empire.
I like it, personal responsibility. So, Jason, and then
Yeah, Mark asked this question that comes with my harsh criticizing on Chinese philosophy, because we can say many. Again, that's my own personal opinion. Okay, so you can take everything good thing about Chinese philosophy, but I think Chinese philosophy, the weakest part is logic. There's no strong logic here. So for history, you can, like Mark asks, how do I know the state is in Tao? Same question, how do I know this person is a Junzi and he is a small man? So you can go to Confucius, say, okay, Junzi possess this has Ren, has virtues, has this. Then it becomes a circular logic. So through the history, then they have the partition, two party argue each other. They all call themselves Junzi, call the other side small man. And then this on and on. And then when you, just like my example, talking about when Donald Trump is refuse to acknowledge he failed, he lose the election. Some people will quit. Okay, but David said, "Oh, how about the people stay there?" Yeah, the people stay there, believe the state is in Tao. Okay, so they should work for government. But the person who quit will believe the state is not in Tao. So I think that's the situation I see for 1,000 years, because the logic is weak. Okay, I think that's my opinion.
thank you, Quan.
I would say that you have extreme situations that it would be quite easy to have a judgment, in the sense that in certain time of certain dynasties, you have complete disorganization of the society, you have disorder, you have famines and so on, and the effectlessness of the administration to redress those problems. Okay, so I would say those are the extreme situation where the judgment is quite easy. However, if you take the medium situation, when it's not so obvious that it's completely disorganized, but it's not necessarily the apex or the glory of the empire either, I would say that it's part of the ruling class capacity to have a certain self-confidence in order to maintain that order. Because if you don't have a self-confidence in yourself and in your group, how would you be capable to administer? I'm not saying that you are not that you don't have to give practical results of your pretensions. Of course, you have to give practical results upholding your pretensions, but at the same time, the fact that you need to have a kind of basic confidence in yourself is also part of the aristocratic attitude. And I think that the Confucian school was upholding that aristocratic attitude. And once again, you have the facts, the truth, but also the real. And the real is defined by the ruling class, and it's part of their self-confidence. I stop here.
Thank you, Juan. So we'll move on to number 6 and 7, I believe, is the next two.
5, 6, 7.
Or 5, 6, and 7. Okay. Would anybody like to read their version? I can go ahead and. All right. Okay. Would you like to read?
I can, sure.
Are you sure? I can.
Yeah. Yeah. I just have to readjust because my chapters are off. Chapter 6. Nan Kong Ko, submitting an inquiry to Confucius, said, I was skillful at archery, and Ao could move a boat along upon the land, but neither of them died a natural death. Yu and Chi personally wrought at the toils of husbandry, and they became possessors of the kingdom. The master made no reply. But when Nan Kong Kao went out, he said, a superior man indeed is this, an esteemer of virtue indeed is this. Verse 6, the master said, superior men, and yet not always virtuous, there have been, alas, but there never has been a mean man and at the same time virtuous. Chapter 7. The master said, can there be love which does not lead to strictness with its object? Can there be loyalty which does not lead to instruction of its object?
Thank you. So, Juan, would you like to read? What you see loud?
Okay. The Eno. So 14.5. Nan Kong Ko questioned Confucius, saying, Yi was a great archer, and Ao was a great boatman, yet neither died a natural death. On the other hand, Yu and Ti were farmers in the fields, and yet came to possess all the world. The master did not reply. After Nan Kong Ko went out, the master said, what a Junzi this man is, what fine virtue this man has. 14.6, the master said, a Junzi who is not a Ran, there are such people. There has never been a small man who is a Ran. 14.7, the master said, if you cherish them, can you not make them labor? If you are loyal to them, can you not instruct them?
Jason.
Just 1 minute. Okay, so here we deal with the person Nan Gong Kuo, right? Nan Gong Kuo. Okay, so just to remind on the book 5, it's called Nan Rong. That's the same person because Confucius said he is can get a good job when the government in order, just like previous we talked about, and avoid punishment when the government or the state is in not in order or not in doubt. Okay, so this kind of person. So Confucius married off his elder brother's daughter to him. So he is a relative to in-law, okay, to Confucius. Okay, so that's the background on this. So Nan Gong Gua asked Confucius, the archer Yi is a famous archer, okay, marksman, okay, was good at shooting, and the mighty man Ao could shake the whole ship. Okay, so I don't think Ao is a boatman; he's a powerful man. Okay, like Oedipus. Okay? So he can shake the whole ship. But both of them die unnatural. The sage kings, Yu and Ji, okay, they themselves farm in the field, but they possesses the world. The master didn't answer. After Nangong Guo left, the master said, he is a Junzi. He appreciates the virtues. Okay, so I think the Confucius said, I put it in the parentheses. Okay, so I think I should change this word, not the skills. So basics, the Yi has skills of shooting, and the Ao has a power of the strength, right? Nangong Gua asked this question. Confucius didn't answer but Confucius evaluate why he asked this question. Because Nangong Gua appreciate the people's virtue, like the sage king, Yu and the Ji. They do the regular thing, farming. Okay, they don't have any special skill, but they do the regular work. But turn out they become a sage king. But Yi and the Ao, they have special skills, but turn out they die unnatural. This one, I think later on we will keep talking about this, because that's very important in Confucian school. The virtue is more important than skill. And this kind of argument, it happened for 1,000 years. One important thing is during the Northern Song dynasty, Sima Guang. They have argued in the royal court. They have argued. For example, you want to hire an accountant, right? At that time, still have the test system, royal civil examination. So let's say if I want to hire an accountant, okay, financial, should I test him about the bookkeeping or I test him about the virtue? The Confucius scholars' argument is you should test on the virtues, okay? Because the accounting skill, financial skill, you can learn later, but the foundation is your virtue. Okay? So I think that's becoming very important in the Confucian school teaching. And here you will see how Confucius appreciates Nangong Kuo, okay, about this one, because he during this question, Confucius didn't answer. Confucius just evaluated this person, and then she said, okay, he's a gentleman. And then he wait until Nangong Guo left, because he doesn't want to praise him in front of him, because he's much younger. Confucius married his elder brother's daughter to him, so he must be the one generation younger to Confucius. Chapter 6. The master said, some Junzi who don't possess ren, but there is never a small man who possesses ren. Okay, so that's kind of a very logical way to talk about, right? If you draw the Venn chart, you'll be understand, right? Junzi and the xiaoren, they have two things. They have no overlap. Okay, but not all Junzi can be a ren people. Some Junzi will be ren people. And since Junzi and the small man has no overlap, so never have a small man who possess ren. Okay, so if you draw the Venn chart, and you will see actually Confucius had very clear logic thinking this way. But I should say Yuan Xian had a clear logical thinking, because I find out this chapter is much more logical than others. So I believe this disciple, Yuan Xian, probably has a better logical mind than other disciples. Chapter 7, the master said, loving someone, can you not improve him? Being sincere to someone, can you not admonish him? Okay, I think the translation become very difficult, and then a lot of word here. So here, Confucius, the word used is lao. That's why a lot of translator will call it the toil, make him work, something like this. And I believe here that means make sure that person improve himself. Okay, so so I decided to translate to improve him. Okay, so make the person self-improve. Okay, and if you are sincere, right, and then sincere to someone, okay, then you have to admonish them. It's not, the other word is praise him. Okay, so so that means if you took another way is you don't spoil. If you love someone, you don't spoil that person. If you sincere to your this friend, usually talk about your friend, right? You don't just praise him. You should admonish him. That means you need to either both, for both situations, the one you love, the one you sincere to, you need to make sure that person will keep improving. Okay, that's also very important in Confucius concept, because self-improvement and yourself. And if you love a person, you sincere to this person, you want to make sure you are improving. So we are all Confucian, or we are all Confucians, right? So I always work hard, working on my translation to improve myself. And I keep talking about this. I want everybody in the Zoom meeting, improve yourself. So that's the way Confucius was. Yeah. Ama, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
glad
you.
you said that.
I just wanted to point out, this doesn't, I agree, this was probably written later by Confucius' disciple, though that doesn't necessarily make it not his words or his teaching. Just this was the logical note taker in class. This was the one who had bullet points in his notebook as he took notes of everything that he thought was important that the master was saying. And that is why there is slightly a different flavor. The Analects are a compilation of everyone's class notes, and everyone took them a little different. And so it's got a different texture, a different feel in different sections. As far as this section goes, in just these 3 chapters, I feel that there's like a condensing and then expansion that happens here, where what's being asked is, what is a ren junsa? That these are 2 fundamentally all important terms in the mind of Confucius, in the teachings of Confucius. And here for the first time, we see this idea that a person could theoretically be both ren and achieve being a junsa. Conversely, there are ways you could have one to the exclusion of the other, be a junsa without ren, or have ren and never be recognized as a junsa. And so in these few chapters, when Nangonghua is talking to Confucius, this is one of the very few occasions he makes the declarative, he is a junsa. That is something that hasn't happened much through the Analects before this, especially not for anyone alive. If ever it's kind of heaped upon somebody, it was somebody who has been dead for quite some time, so we can kind of look at them humorously and go, yep, definitely a junsa. They met all the criteria. This is the first living person, younger than Confucius, who gets that sort of accolade from him. And then we talk about junsa don't necessarily possess ren. So although this is the highest compliment that Confucius has kind of heaped upon somebody, the next chapter is saying, but we're not saying that he has obtained ren. That is something that you still have to work at. You still have to polish and grind to achieve. And that polish and grinding comes forward in the last verse, where he says, if you love someone, don't you teach them. If you are loyal and sincere and authentic with somebody, don't you admonish them? That is the proper way to show affection. And so this single compliment that is kind of like the penultimate one in the Analects, is immediately sort of mitigated with a couple more passages, and gives us at least the indication that although this was an accomplished student of Confucius, that didn't mean he was done. He still had work to do.
Juan, I'm looking forward to hearing this. Actually, thank you for that. That's something to think about. Go ahead, Juan.
I think that paragraph 14.6 is rightly very interesting, because there is a mechanical way to match the superior qualities in the upper trigram with a title within Confucianism, okay? Because once again, the upper hexagram is made by the line 4, 5, and 6 by the book, okay? I'm not saying that the answer is by the book, but there is an answer by the book. At the line 4 correspond the quality of yi, okay? The quality of justice. And theoretically, the name that is associated for the people at yi, at the line 4, are the xian, meaning the worthy and responsible and capable people. And by the book at line 4, 5, you have ran, which is the timeless form of goodness. And the people having achieved that are called the junzi, and they have the cardinal virtues of valor and humanity. And at line 6, you have the timeless form of Tao, of Zheng, the truth, and the practical cardinal virtue corresponding to that is Chu, wisdom. And the people having that level of achievement in the upper trigram by the book, once again, are called the Shengran. Okay, so here, when he say that in paragraph 14.6, that a Junzi who is not Ran, there are such people. I think that there are two possible interpretations, because Junzi can be simply understood as a nobleman. Okay, so there are certainly noblemen who did not achieve the epistemological level of valor and humanity. That's the easy answer, to play with the word, that here Junzi doesn't mean the level of epistemological accomplishment, but simply the fact that the guy is a nobleman. The other stuff that we can also say that Junzi sometimes can be used to qualify the people at the first level in the upper trigram, okay, meaning line 4. The people at Yi that usually are called Xian, to distinguish them from the Junzi, the people having attained to Ran. And here, the Junzi who is not Ran, there are such people, meaning the Junzi here is used loosely for someone that is in the upper trigram, okay? And the people at line 4 at Yi are also called Junzi. But of course, and the last line is interesting, there has never been a small man who's Ran, in the sense that the small man is the man living in the animal kingdom of line 1, 2, and 3, meaning the sense perceptions, the intellect, and the heart mind. And since he is living in the animal kingdom, he cannot be in the upper trigram, because Ran is a quality of the upper trigram, which is line 4, to be very by the book, okay? I'm not saying that we have to be by the book, but I want to say that in Confucianism, you have a very clear distinction in those epistemological steps. And if you want to go by the book, it is possible. But those lines also is to make us discuss beyond what is by the book, of course. I stop here.
Thank you very much for that, Juan. We'll go to David.
Yeah, my comment is extremely at the surface level compared to that analysis, but let me just say that having the master speak in 6 immediately juxtaposed to 5, where he's just declared him Nanjungku a superior man. Indeed, wow. Not in his presence, but he's declared a superior man. And then to go on and say, superior men, might even be virtuous. It could be, not always. But if he were not superior, if he were mean, it couldn't happen that he's virtuous. So the door is open that he's saying this might blossom into virtuosity, into Ren. It's not merely he's superior. He's got that potential. Putting this statement right after that is that open door. It's like a gracious thing to mention, isn't it? I just liked that he said that, or that was put in this position.
That is certainly a very interesting command that is beyond what is by the book.
How is the order of the book determined? Was there a redactor, or was this one person writing this section and put these together, or do we know?
There has been a long, let's say, between the moment when Confucius died in 479 BCE and the destruction of the Lu Principality in 249 BCE, okay? So during those 250 years, it has been revised and corrected till the end, okay? Let's not forget that it was a manual for group discussion, for preparing future statement and future administrators. So it was not something that has been cast forever. It has evolved between 479 BCE and 249 BCE. But when Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty chose in 136 BCE, Confucianism or Rujia as the state doctrine, the text became codified and did not change after 136 BCE because they became state doctrine.
Isn't that interesting how that happens? Yeah. Locked in, no longer subject to review.
Well, you have new comments on those stuff, okay? And it has, it's as a long tradition in Chinese scholarship than to have philosophical reflections on the 4 books and the 5 classics. But the 4 books and the 5 classics by themselves from 136 BCE cannot be changed anymore, but you can add more stuff above them, beyond them, and even against them. But if you are against them, you better be very skillful.
Thank you. So in the interest of time, we're going to go on to 8 and 9 because we have a goal of getting to 12, even though, quality over quantity, but still trying to keep on track. So would anybody like to read number 8 or number 9? And
just a very small point. I'm sorry I had to get logged off there, but what Jason was saying earlier about the attention to logic or more attention to logic in chapter 14, I think is interesting. In the first 4 chapters of book 14, I think Confucius or the writers are implicitly making the distinction between a conditional and a biconditional. Because just because if one thing happens and another happens, it doesn't mean that if that other thing happens, then the first thing happens. So there was a strong logical aspect there.
I think that's fairly clear with it when we're talking about the eloquent speech, but not necessarily virtuous, and or the speech that is not necessarily eloquent, but it's So I think you're right in that sense. But anyway, so shall we go on to number 7 and 8?
Want to talk about 叔子 or no?
Or 8 and 9? I'm sorry. What's that?
No, I'll let it go. I was taken by one of the notes that Jason had in there was another scholar who was commenting on 14.7, and I found the thumbnail translation I did to be compelling, but Jason and I have had a little back and forth in the text. If I butcher this, my apologies to absolutely everybody, but it says something to the effect of, to love without working too hard is the love of a bird. To be loyal without teaching is the loyalty of women for eunuchs. And Jason and I were discussing this because I mistranslated eunuch, but there's something very interesting that this commentator is pointing out, that Confucius is equating that feeling alone is not enough. There's action that must accompany your love or your loyalty. Without it, it's a very minuscule, sort of measly version of the thing. And I just love that this commentator put it in such poetic terms so long ago. As long as I'm already talking, let me go ahead and read 8 and 9, just so that we're making some progress. And if anyone wants to comment on the comment, they are welcome to. But let's see. Oh, I've got this version that is all screwed up, so bear with me. There we go. Oh, the master said, actually, I am going to read the leggy version, so my apologies. The master said, in preparing the governmental notifications, Pishan first made the rough draft. Shu examined and discussed its contents. Zi Yul, the manager of foreign intercourse, then polished the style, and finally, Zi Chan and Dong Li gave it the proper elegance and finish. Verse 9. Someone asked about Zi Chan. The master said, he was a kind man. He asked about Zi Shi. The master said, that man? That man? He asked about Wang Zhong. For him, said the master, the city of Pian, with 300 families, was taken from the chief of the Bao family, who, though to the end of his life he had only coarse rice to eat, did not utter a murmuring word.
Thank you, Aman. I would like to actually go through that a little with the, well, maybe we'll see with the Bao family aspect of it. But would you like to read one?
Okay. So 14.8, the master said, in crafting diplomatic documents, Pi Cheng drafted them, Su Shu commented upon them, Envoy Zi Yu embellished them, and Zi Chan of Dongli made them beautiful. 14.9, someone asked about Zi Chan. The master said he was a generous man. They asked about Zi Si, that one. They asked about Guang Zhong. He was a man. He seized from the Bao family its domain of 300 households in Pian. And though the family head was reduced to eating greens for his meals, he lived out his years without uttering a word of resentment.
Thank you, Quan. Jason.
Yeah, so this one has a full of name. Okay, so but basically, Confucius is talking about two important persons. One is Zi Chan. Okay, I think we talk about him. Zi Chan first. Zi Chan is kind of Confucius contemporary. He is about 30 years older than Confucius. So when Confucius, probably just like today we talk about Ronald Reagan, something like this. Okay, so this kind of time. So he talk about Zi Chan, and he's in the state of Zheng. Okay, I think before we talk about him, Confucius appreciate him. So Zi Chan, I think through the whole Analects, Confucius keep talking about him. And another one is very important. His name is Guan Zhong. Okay, so we should remember this name. Before we talk about Guan Zhong, I think in book, I put a note. book 5, no, book, so, okay, before Confucius has kind of criticized Guanzhong, but it's interesting because Guanzhong being considered as the legalist, okay, the early legalist. But since he has a great contribution, Confucius in general has a good word about him, and you will see this one. So please pay attention this person, Guanzhong. So I'm going to start the translation. Chapter 7, the master said, oh no, I'm sorry. Chapter 8, the master said, the diplomatic document of the state of Zheng were drafted by Bi Sheng, okay, commented by Si Shu, okay, edited by envoy Zi Yu, and published by the Prime Minister Zi Can, okay. So he called it the Eastern Office or Dongli because I believe the primary office is on the east side. Okay, so they call it Dongli, East Office, Zi Can. So I think the significance here is Confucius also pay attention on the process, the SOP today we will call, okay, how the document, okay, the official document, diplomatic document has been created, right? They have a certain process, you drafted by someone and then commented by another person, edited by somebody, and finally polished by the prime minister. Then you go out. So I think that's Confucius is talking about the right process, and today we may say that's SOP. Okay, that's a good procedure to follow. Okay, so that's chapter 8. Chapter 9. Someone asked about Zi Can. Okay, same person, right? Confucius said he benefited people, 惠人. Okay, and someone asked about Zi Xi. Okay, the master said, who is he? Who is he? Okay, no comment. I think Zi Xi, I do some check. Zi Xi is a minister from state of Chu, and he once want to hire Confucius, and later on he didn't. So anyway, Confucius had no comment. Okay. Then someone continued to ask about Guanzhong. Okay, that's the person. Please pay attention on this one. The master said, he's a man. He seized 300 households of the fiefdom of Pian. I even cannot, what's the name? Yeah, Pian, okay. The Pian from the Bo family, okay. So the story is the Bo family has committed some crime, something, okay. And the punishment should be death. But Guanzhong is legalist, okay, and the legalist have the thinking is utilitarian thinking. So instead of put Bo to death, he confiscated the family property, so give to the state, okay. And then since Bo he didn't die for his crime, so he had to eat simple food, but he has no complaints throughout his lifetime. So that's Confucius talking about Guanzhong's contribution. Okay, the background is that somebody Bo has committed crime. That by law he should put it. He should be the death penalty. But Guanzhong seize his property, give to the state. So in this way, you enrich, okay, increase the wealth of the state, okay, and save that person's life. So that person, okay, Bo, even have lived, eat simple food, means he lived in the poor life, in the impoverished condition, but he still has no complaint because he survived. I think that's the story of this. Among this.
Yeah, Oh, go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to see if Jason, actually, if you could give a point of clarification, because some people may not know what legalism is exactly. So
Legalism actually it's make it simple. That's the data happen in the data time. Okay, so basics is just a reward and a punishment. So Qin dynasty, they eventually united the entire China, become the first state or the central government. Basically, use legalism. The concept of legalism. The thinking is that's totally opposite to Confucius thinking. Confucius all about the moral thinking. Legalism, basic thinking is all treat people as tools, right? So just like an animal, you reward, punishment, they call two handles. Okay, and the emperor, okay, the ruler should so-called 无为, okay, no action. But this kind of no action is you don't do the real job, have the law doing or use this certain kind of method doing the job to control. And their goal is all utilitarian. So all the people become the means. Okay, so the purpose of the people is make the state strong, rich. I think that's on the surface. That's the legalism. And then it's not fair to call 资产 as legalist because that time they don't have this kind of thinking. But in the data,
right.
people start to think about his method is kind of close to the legalist thinking. Okay, so in general, people may see, okay, not 资产, I'm sorry, 管仲, okay, 管仲 is the early legalist, but at that time, it's not. But that's all I have to say because here.
Yeah, I just want to make that point of clarification that it was like there was
please ask question.
Strict, yes, there are strict laws, but it wasn't legalism because Han Fei was very much.
But
later,
later become a very strict, harsh law. Okay, that's put in the practice. Yeah. So, but it's a complex question, but. I don't want diverse, the whole subject because today we are not. One day we can read Han Fei Zi, okay, as a legalist, chapter by chapter. Then we got the total. And then you want to think about legalism thinking. And when you read Sun Tzu, the other word, it's kind of close to the legalism thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that kind of sets the foundation. Oh no, I have no problem digressing on a tangent about legalism and Han Fei in particular because he's an interesting character. Robert Jur is what just came to mind. The basic idea, you could make punishments bad enough that even a compulsive criminal can't do the crime, won't pick up gold if it's molten on the ground. That makes it untenable, and so punishment can be likewise untenable. But I'm not going to talk very much about chapter 9 because it's a bit in the weeds, dealing with the Bull family and dealing with its connections to legalism. I do want to talk about that standard operating procedure of chapter 8, because I think there's something very interesting at work subtextually in his sort of laying out the official proper standard operating procedure. And that is, the documents pass through the hand of Pi Shan and then Shi Shu and then Zhu Yu and finally into Zi Chan. You got 4 different ministers here, 4 different people involved in producing one article. And the subtextual comment is, and it came out perfect every time. Look how harmoniously these 4 learned men could operate together. There's a couple of things that fascinate me about this. One is that it's subtextually communicating the idea of what in a harmonious government, in what Mark was asking, how do you know if it's got Tao? If it's really following the Tao and it's with the Tao, then this sort of procedure should just be smooth as silk. It should just happen naturally because all parts are pulling together in the same direction. It reminds me of my personal bitter hatred for style guides. And when someone finally explained to me, you got to have a style guide, because if you have 12 different writers writing for the same magazine and each of them want to do it their own little way, then eventually the whole thing starts to look like a jumbled mess. So we all do it this way, and we have this big tome guide that says this is how you will make a citation, this is when you use italics, this is when you don't. And it seems painfully ritualistic, which I think Confucius would love, but he's indicating the same kind of result by the natural harmony of a few ministers in the government, as opposed to some formalized lore that says this is how you will go about doing these things. And they each improved upon each other, sort of effortlessly and without resentment. And so I find that chapter 8 very interesting, because on the one hand, it's an argument for his Li, it's an argument for ritualism, it's an argument for the harmony and the Ren that these 4 different individuals seem to have been indicated to hold for one another.
Thank you, Amon. We'll go to Quan.
I want to come back a little bit to the distinction between Confucianism and legalism. Legalism, as Jason said quite rightly, is that people are treated like animals, like you have a punishment and you have rewards, meaning that legalism believe in the lower trigram, okay, in the sense perception, in the intellect, in the heart mind, meaning that since legalism either doesn't attribute to the common people the capacity to go to the upper trigram, where you have the timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth, or they simply don't believe in the existence of the upper trigram. So if you deny the capacity to go to the upper trigram for most people, or you don't simply believe in it, it is absolutely logical that the only way to ruin a state is by punishments and rewards. On the other hand, Confucianism believe in the upper trigram, meaning the timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth as translated in human behavior as wisdom, justice, humanity, and valor. So it's not only a question of efficiency, it's a metaphysical question. If you are a realist, in the sense that do you believe in the reality of the upper trigram, or you don't believe in the reality of the upper trigram. Even if they were Confucian gentlemen who would suggest what I would call small legalist programs for certain specific tasks, but the legalists who were the advisors of the first emperor were, I would call, the metaphysical legalists, meaning that they don't believe too much in the upper trigram. And it has been a long dialogue within Chinese civilization between those who believe in the reality of the upper trigram and those who don't believe in the reality of the upper trigram, or who would deny the capacity to go to the upper trigram to most people. I stop here.
And just for clarity for that, and correct me if I'm wrong, one essentially is that you're believing that humanity is actually inherently bad or good in certain cases.
Yes, and there is an exception. There's a guy of the 3rd century BCE named Sun Tzu, who was a Confucianist, who believed in the upper trigram, but he still believed that man is fundamentally bad, or maybe there is a nuance in his thinking. Maybe he believed that most men are not capable to go to the upper trigram. So for practical reasons, it's better to implement legalist principles to rule most people. But for the aristocracy, it's still possible to promote the reality of the upper trigram. he is truly an exception within the Confucianist endeavor, because all Confucianists believe in the reality of the upper trigram, meaning the timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth, translated as the four cardinal virtue of justice, valor, humanity, and wisdom.
Thank you, Glenn. Does anybody else have any comments about these two? If not, we can get to the final few, but go ahead.
I'll make one quick comment about Sun Tzu, who, as Quan pointed out, was a Confucian who said people are rotten. Just basically people are rotten and they require, but his solution was the same as Confucius. They still require teaching, polishing, grinding to work the rotten out of them. I'll also point out that he was one of the rare Confucians in the early centuries to be gainfully employed in the court of other ministers. And so his opinion may have been shaped by environment.
Okay, I'm going to defend for Xunzi for something. Because first, he is not exception, I will say. The reason is we say it's exception because we take 2,000 years example. We look back because all our Confucian mentions his follower. So his voice become, unheard. And that's one of the reasons. And second, his idea of human nature is bad because he want to focus on ritual. So use ritual and education to correct people. So what he focus is education, learning. I think that's his purpose. The true reason I like him a lot is just personal favor, because his writing is very logically structured, okay, like an essay. Okay, so I enjoy reading his writing. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I don't see any other hands up or anybody else wish to comment.
If 10,
not, we'll get
10, 11, and 12. Okay, be careful. It's full of names. So anyone want to practice, that's a good good way to practice pronounce Chinese name.
I mean, I'm willing to practice. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. I mean, but it's yeah, okay. It is practice. So 10, 11, and 12, right?
Yeah.
The master said to be poor without murmuring is difficult. To be rich without being proud is easy. Number 11, master said, Mi Gong Chu is more than fit to be chief officer in the families of Zhao and Wei, but he is not fit to be great officer to either of the states Tang or Zhu. Those are complete guesses. Zulu. I do know him. Asked what constituted a complete man. The master said, suppose a man with the knowledge of Zhang Wangzong, the freedom from covetousness of Gong Chu, the bravery of Zhuang of Bian, and the very talents of Ran Hui. And to these, the accomplishments of the rules of property and music, such a one might be reckoned a complete man. He then added, but what is the necessity for a complete man of the present day to have all these things? The man who in the view of gain thinks of righteousness, who in the view of danger is prepared to give up his life, and who does not forget an old agreement, however far back it extends, such a man may be reckoned a complete man. All right, that was interesting. with my pronunciations there. Okay.
Okay,
The
so I
Kwong-
read Eno.
So
I read
you can go, you can read the right names.
Okay, so here is the translation by Robert Eno, 14.10. The master said, to be poor and without resentment is hard. To be wealthy and without arrogance is easy. 14.11. The master said, is Meng Gong Chuo serve as an elder at the courts of the Zhao and Wei families, he would be excellent, but he is unfit to be a grandee at court in the states of Tang and Shui. 14.12. Zulu asked about the complete man. The master said, if he were as wise as Zhang Wuzhong, as free from desire as Gong Chuo, as valorous as Zhuangzi of Pian, as accomplished in the arts at Ranqiu, and patterned with Li and music besides, then he may be called a complete man. He added, but for someone to be deemed a complete man nowadays, what need does he have for all this? If seeing profit, his thoughts turn to what is right, and seeing danger, is ready to risk his life, and if he can long endure hardship without forgetting the teachings that have guided his ordinary life, he may indeed be deemed a complete man.
Thank you, Kwong, and
Did you
thank
say
you.
prophet?
Yeah, what's your comment?
Okay. I was just asking if he used the word profit instead of gain. That's what I was thinking. Anyway, that's no big deal. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, chapter 10. Okay, I think chapter 10 is easy, right? So the master said it is difficult not to complain when one is poor. It is relatively easy not to take pride in themselves when one gets rich. So in a way, Confucius never asked people to be poor, right? He pursuing wealth is not a problem, but you need in the right way. And when you are rich, you should not be too proud. And he talked about when you are rich, you should love riches. Okay, he is very practical. Riches need money, right? You need to do ceremony. You need money. So when you are rich, okay, you pursue, you love riches. That's good. Okay, so that's Confucius teaching. If you can think about it's different than what Jesus is teaching. Okay, so that's kind of a little bit opposite here. Chapter 11, the master said, Meng Gongchuo is good at being an elder for the powerful household like Wei or Zhao, but not good at being a minister for a tiny state like Teng or Xue. Okay, so a lot of names here. Okay, first you see Meng. Okay, remember there were three powerful family in the state of Lu. Okay, Ji family, Fu family, and the Meng family. So Ji family is the most powerful one, and Confucius hate them. For every time Confucius you see with Ji, that always Confucius have a problem with them. And the Meng family, Confucius is the favorite, okay, because Confucius has tutored, okay, two of their prince, the people. So Confucius always has a much better word for Meng family, but a harsh word for Ji family. So that's why here. And this one is very interesting. Confucius talking about Meng Gong Chuo. And he is a person who is kind of like have a high virtue, but not probably doesn't have the strong administrative skill. That's why he can be an elder, symbolic position for the powerful household, powerful state. During that time, still a household. Wei and Zhao, which belong to the state of Jin, the most powerful state, but not good being a minister, which require the administrative skills, even for very small state like Teng and Xue. Okay, that's Confucius' comment on 孟公错. Chapter 12. 子路 asks what an ideal man is. Okay, so here 成人, okay, and another translation translates a complete man. I think this one Confucius give a concept of ideal man. Okay, so different than 君子, different than 人. Okay, so Confucius tried to give a definition of ideal man. I think the ideal man is more practical, okay, than 君子. Okay, so that's my, and unfortunately, that's the only chapter, only place in the whole Analect Confucius talking about the concept of ideal man. So the master said, 子路asked about this ideal man, and we know 子路 is more practical than other disciples. And again, you probably can tell the tone, the conversation between Confucius and Zi Lu, the tone is a little bit different, usually more like friend, okay, more friendly conversation. So the master said, he who is as wise as, hold on, I have to read the Chinese, otherwise it's difficult to pronounce it. Okay, so just 1 minute. All right. The master said, he who is as wise as Zhang Wuzong, okay, as desireless as Gong Chuo, as brave as Bian Zhuang, as skillful as Ran Qiu, and cultivated with rituals and the music, can be an ideal man. The master later said, as an ideal man of today, why shall he be so? He can be an ideal man if he ponders what is right when seeking profit, ponders what is his duty when seeing dangers, and never forget his words of promise or aspiration after long enduring hardship. So Confucius always give the best situation. He has all the benefit, right, from the Zhang Wuzong's wisdom of Zhang Wuzong, the desireless as Gong Chuo, the bravery as Bian Zhuang, the skillfulness as Ran Qiu, okay, and then a ritual and the musical. They become ideal man, very idealistic. Then he talked about, okay, but you know, in today, okay, my assumption is I don't have a very high standard. As long as you don't forget about what's righteousness, okay, when you seeking profit and during the danger, you never forget what's your duty. And then you can be called an ideal man. And that's kind of the tone Confucius used when he talked to Zi Lu. So that's all I need to say. And then I'm up, please. Oh, I'm on left.
Yeah, he said in the notes in the chat.
Okay, all right. So so any other comment for this long chapter?
Well, it's fascinating that we've been talking about the Jinzu for so long and all of the virtues, and now we're learning that there isn't any one person that has all of these. It's something which is a kind of ideal that's made up of made up from the characters of different people. Thank you.
That's interesting. I think that's why back to my original comment about this chapter. I think it's the writer, okay, the author of this chapter is kind of have a logical mind. So you see a lot of things he talking about. If you have A, you must have B, but you have B, it not necessarily have A, right? And he like to talk about the ideal situation. You have the this guy's the virtual the smartness of this guy, the bravery of this guy, the skillfulness of this guy, and all add up is ideal. So I think by seeing this, it's interesting. Yeah. So Joe, you have no voice. Okay, Joe lost his voice, and then we'll let Joe fix the problem.
Now, can you hear?
Yeah, okay.
Can you hear me now? Oh,
Yeah.
all right. I thought it was actually, I was wondering, I was talking a while ago and I was like, this is interesting because it did, nobody was
Nobody listened to
responding. Yeah, exactly. Which, would have been okay. But just to, just actually to go off of what Mark was saying, I think that I believe it was chapter 11 where he goes through each one of his students and he notes what they're good at and what they are not good at, and actually talks about what one of them is good at finances. One of them, he says, needs to work a little bit harder at school. And so he goes through each one and noting their shortcomings, that there's this that everybody has something to work on. So it's interesting to hear about when this idea of the complete man comes up, because it's almost like an ideal sage, is what I'm kind of thinking in that sense. Somebody that demonstrates all the virtues of the upper triagram, as Quan would has referred to. Somebody that's righteous, brave, and does everything that this was called for his position. I also, I think that there was some. I'm looking at some notes here. Sorry, I stepped away for a moment. Oh, Jason, go ahead. Actually,
Yeah, I think I need to make some clarification here. Okay, I think that when Joe, you talk about this chapter 12 compared to in the I forget which chapter, but it's in the book 11, right? Talk about each.
I believe it's 11.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we should not put them together. Okay, for two reasons. The people all mentioned in this book, book 14, they are except Ran Qiu. Okay, but the rest are not Confucius' disciple. So Confucius just use them as example. Okay, so you can use if ideal man in today, you will say you have the wealth of Bill Gates, the handsomeness of Tom Cruise. You have the muscle like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay, all add up together. So I think he used the celebrity, okay, as the example to show, okay, not the like a disciple. He say, oh, he's handsome, he's smart, he's good in finance, that's he good in math, he's good in art. That's kind of his disciple. I think that's the difference. Except the Ran Qiu is his disciple, but again, Ran Qiu is the person is very skillful, okay, person in finance, okay, and so that's number one I like to make clear. Number two, if we look at this ideal man, I don't think we should. It's different than the concept of 君子, because if you look at all these so-called virtues, this kind of virtue is more like a skill. Okay, the practical virtue, not moral kind of thing. So first you talk about the wise, right? As wise as Zhang Wuzhong, okay. This wise, okay, is kind of like knowledge, this kind of wise or smartness. You can outsmart other people, okay. This kind of smart, okay. And 卞庄 is a powerful, a powerful man, okay. I should not say powerful, a strong man, okay. Have a lot of strength, okay. This kind of Hercules, this kind of person. Talk about Ran Qiu. Ran Qiu is good in the administration, okay, manage the money, okay. So he put about this one is a skill, less on the moral, okay, more on the skillful, okay. So I think that's the difference. And I would say the so-called complete man or ideal man has much less virtual meaning, okay, in this one. And that's why later on, Confucius said, okay, for today's ideal man, you don't have to be like this. He kind of add some virtual meaning on that. The minimum virtual meaning is that he talk about when you seeking profit, okay, don't forget about the righteousness. When you are in danger, don't forget about your duty. That's kind of the minimum moral standard on that. So again, that's very Confucius style, right? When you talk about ideal man, which is not much moral sense, but he want to add a little bit moral requirement on that, just like the beginning when you talk about the learned man. Okay, so yeah, I will stop here, and if you have thing to discussion, and then we will continue next week. And I need to leave in a few minutes, you know. And anyway, thank you everyone, and then that's we are doing book 14. Okay, so next week we'll continue. Thank you.
So are there any questions for Jason before he leaves, or any comments?
Again, thank
Are
you
there
very
any
much.
comments?
Lot of effort goes into it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Are there any comments at all, actually, regarding any of the texts that we had this evening? Anything that has, you know, stuck out to you, that you find interesting follow up on? There's some things in the beginning that I would think that would be worth following up on, but I'll listen to anybody's thoughts. Well, I think that one of the things that I found to be interesting is something that, you know, actually Mark's question elicited, where there's this idea of number, I think it was 4, let me just double check. It's almost like a element of sophistry, how we have people that are virtuous who speak will be sure to speak correctly, but those whose speech is good may not always be virtuous, and the opposite is true. And you know, that's something actually I think we often see is that, you know, one of the things that people that often are articulate sometimes are able to spin things to make them sound a certain way to manipulate another individual or a populace in certain cases. And the reason this is important is because rhetoric, actually, especially when it came to the Greeks and Stoicism, was very important, because rhetoric was not only linked to the ability to communicate, but also to your character. That nobody would actually follow your words unless you lived what you said. So you had to demonstrate by example. So it was a part of, you know, is seen as something as part of pursuing a virtue, is that whatever you said it eloquently, but you also held yourself to those standards. And I think that that's a very important point, and something that is often overlooked in today's culture. And we can go back to number 3 was also interesting to me. And I think how bold language may be lofty and bold, and actions the same. When a bad government prevails, the actions may be lofty and bold, but the language may be with some reserve. So, I mean, I just think that if anything, with number 3, it really does talk about, and I think this is the one that Mark asked the question, how do you know you're in a good government? Or that might have been a different one. That might have been number 5. But in this particular instance, it's talking about more assertive communication than actually being eloquent. So that's a kind of a change in pace than as opposed to somebody that's just trying to win you over. There's more a dictatorial approach being taken for this, for number 3. Let me see, for number 2, I thought was very interesting as well. And this goes into some themes that we've seen throughout Confucius, that learning is a lifelong endeavor, but it's also something that you should be struggling with, that you should always be pushing. It should not be easy. And I think there's a couple of different things that we can explore with that. The reason why learning is not only so important, but the willingness to struggle with it, because I think the willingness to struggle and the struggle in it of itself actually brings wisdom, which is a virtue. That as you work harder at something, that you start to understand what it takes to become the ideal self. And then you can also respect the individuals that are also around you. And I think that that's one of the things that I've actually noticed, just and that's personally in my life, that when I've had to work harder and somebody can do something very easily, I can respect their talents. But if I never worked harder, I'd probably not necessarily appreciate what they did. So I think that that's this love of comfort, which is what they're talking about in number 2, is something that of a default mechanism for us. And I find this to be especially wise because I find a lot of people to be critical of others, almost immediately, they have something negative to say. And those individuals have probably not struggled enough, in the sense that they're critical of what someone else is doing or saying, or not necessarily understanding the struggle that they've gone through. So it develops another aspect, it develops empathy. So, and I think that was especially deep. Let's see, for number 1, when good government prevails in a state. So that's COVID. Okay. I just basically, I think one of the more interesting topics to me has been shame, and I think we've discussed this here in the past. And there's been such this kind of, well, you should never feel shameful, a kind of approach by a lot of different people actually have heard people say that shaming or shame, not shaming, that shame is always a negative thing. At the same time, I don't think you'd like someone to be shameless. And I think that that's what he's kind of getting to here, is the importance of shame, how shame actually works as a transformative reaction or emotion, in the sense that you may feel guilty about something, but you feel guilty about an act. You don't necessarily, when you're feeling shame, when you're actually feeling something deeper than that. I think that that is something that leads to a personal transformation, and often will prevent you from crossing lines that you ought not cross. And if you think about it, there are a lot of shameless politicians in today's world. I don't like to necessarily bring politics into it, but there are individuals that will do anything to maintain power, and they will not. They'll either exploit others and have no shame in doing it, or they'll actually just flat out lie and not necessarily be honest. Who was it? The senator that said, DLJ, you're old enough to remember, not to be critical, that
Ouch.
they said, yes, something along the lines of, I believe it was to McCarthy, have you no shame, have you no shame, when McCarthy was actually
Oh yes,
you know, basically on his witch.
It was the news guy.
Was it the? I thought it was a fellow senator that said it.
No.
Okay. So,
Very one of the most famous news anchors of all time. And I'm blanking.
One of the most. Well, there's
Yeah.
Dan Rather. There's not many. I mean, there's Peter Jennings.
It's Morrow. Morrow?
Yes, that's the one.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Very good. So, but having no shame, and I mean, I think that that's actually, you know, kind of something that's lacking in today's world, to be quite honest. And yeah, I mean, if you have,
it's also in the case of Trump, obviously, it's actually being rewarded.
right, that's the well, being shameless is being rewarded.
Yeah,
no, that's the and it goes deeper than that. The lack of adherence to the rules of the Senate, you know, to do their jobs with confirmations, and only to obstruct, you know, whether it be for the Supreme Court or for the military. Those types of things are acts only to maintain your own power and endure yourself to a specific group. And what it is it's a lack of recognition that there is something bigger than yourself. And that is something that Confucius actually absolutely gets to, is that it speaks to understanding the importance of your role in the government and you actually executing that role. And when you don't execute that role, you disgrace yourself. So and this gets to a much deeper concept, because this is why, and I was initially kind of skeptical, I should say, when we started out on this exploration. I was a little bit skeptical of the emphasis that was put onto ritual, specifically Li. And as I had gotten to know that a little bit more, Li wasn't just ritual for ritual's sake. It was ritual as a form of respect for what had come before you. Now, that does not necessarily mean that everything that has come before you is right, but at the same time, or just, probably unjust in many cases, but there are certain rituals that enable us to function, as a government in particular. And if they're not followed, then there's chaos. So from that perspective, and it's not just a ritual, it's your responsibility, because it's with Confucius, I'm getting the impression that it's not just about the ritual, it's about your responsibility that you actually need to execute and complete your duties. So that's gets to the importance of duty within Confucius as well. And yeah, it leads to it's a well-ordered society. It's more harmonious if people are actually following the rules that they've agreed upon. So that is Li, and that is an essential part of keeping the peace. And that's one of the things that Confucius is absolutely focused on, is social harmony. So in that particular passage, when he talks about good government prevails in a state to be thinking only of a salary, and when bad government prevails, to be thinking in the same way only of salary. So this is shameful. Anyway, I just thought that was something that working into the idea of shame is an important part of this.
All this is alive and well and embedded in the Singapore way of doing things.
The Confucian way.
Well, yeah, but not by name. It's just kind of culturally just is. It's so obviously, well, I mean, it's largely Chinese population anyway, but yeah, it's kind of built in. It works, which makes it quite conservative in a very socialist way. It's bizarre and pleasant.
That is very interesting, because you had texted me something interesting. We were talking about how modern meritocracy in the United States was not necessarily something that was working for everyone.
Yes.
And you had mentioned, but you felt that meritocracy absolutely does work.
Yeah, meritocracy isn't the problem. That's not the US. Capitalism is the US's problem, not meritocracy. So that's why I wanted to just get into that session and ask that question. But never mind.
But I think that's something where we're talking about, when you're talking about a meritocracy working, even regardless of the system, it's a breakdown in character. It's a breakdown in the individual's virtues and the adherence to certain rules and agreed upon rules. So the idea that you're setting up a system that is only benefiting, in this particular instance, David Brooks was referring to individuals going to universities being, that were kind of becoming separated from the rest of society and looking down on everyone else. That, and that it wasn't this meritocracy, the access to that type of lifestyle, the social mobility, has somehow broken down in the United States, and there has become this elite class versus this middle and lower class individuals. And I don't even know how to define that necessarily. But I'll just say.
So it all depends on what metrics you use for merit.
Well, but it all revolves around the individual of character. Like, in other words, your willingness to actually adhere to what is just. That's the point. That's what's really missing. It's an absence of virtue more than anything else, I would say. And in Confucius's case, that's the point. Is that if you're in a role of responsibility and you're in a position where you can rule over individuals, it ought to be done in accordance with virtue. And he talks about that actually tonight. Even virtue is more important than your skill. Earlier in the evening. So the reason virtue is so important is because they won't abuse. What's that?
Kay had a hand up. I just wanted to mention.
Oh, go ahead, Kay.
So sorry, I just typed a message. I don't have much to say in regard to Confucius. I just wanted to respond to this recent conversation about what was it? Capitalism versus meritocracy. But I'd like to, I don't know if this is the right forum. So I've just sent a private message to the other gentleman.
I'm no gentleman.
Okay.
Well, it is. I mean, but
where are you located? Are you in the UK or are you in Australia?
If you're implying that my accent is anything close to Australian, I'm so hurt.
I have just been berated this evening by someone else who's Australian.
I will. Yes, I know. I caught that. But no, I'm not going to pry. Yeah, I'm in the UK. I actually live in Malaysia, but I got stranded in Australia and then UK because of the pandemic and stuff. But yeah.
So while he was there, he picked up the Australian accent. No, I
understand completely. I've lived in both. But good for you in Malaysia. Wonderful.
You can see it. That's the view from my bedroom window is behind me.
You're so fortunate. Congratulations.
Thank you. Anyway, back to the topic.
Well, I mean, it's. I mean, I think the point that we can speak to with this, with Confucius, is that it's just the absence of virtue in people unwilling to do their positions and actually act in a just manner that ultimately causes chaos. Now, there are some families and during some periods that were more successful than others, and I think one of them, if I remember, we really kind of touched upon this evening, and that was I think Guangzhou, if I remember correctly, and you know how that it was considered one of the more successful states. And correct me if I'm wrong with this, Quan. It was very prosperous for a while, and that while it wasn't legalist, as we had said, like with like Hanfei or anything, which was many years later, that it was still successful. I mean, in the sense that it was strict rule. There were a strict set of rules that were actually applied. Does that sound about right?
Yes, absolutely. But I would say that Guangzhou, who was born in 720 and who died in 645 BCE, can be qualified as an early legalist or simply as an aristocrat. having to deal with certain specific practical problems and gave practical solutions to the problems that he had to deal with. Because once again, I'm a little bit obsessed with the Zhou royal house, but let's not forget that Confucius, as he said very humbly and very rightly, did not invent anything. Okay, he was simply the guy who synthesized and transmitted the control and epistemological legacy of the Zhou royal house. And that Zhou royal house was at the epicenter of Chinese civilization, in the sense that, let's not forget that in the past, kings were not simply judges and administrators. They were also endowed with a sacred and religious reality. And because of that sacredness and religious reality that they transmitted to the Rujia, the school of the scholars, they managed to create Chinese civilization as a civilization which at its root is a realist one. What I mean by a realist one, meaning a civilization believing in the reality of the upper trigram, okay, of the timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth. And I would go as far as to say that there cannot be a civilization without that metaphysical belief at its root. And I know that I drifted a little bit far away from Guangzhou, but I did not forget Guangzhou in my answer, because Guangzhou was simply gave some practical answers, but based on that metaphysical legacy that he was endowed with, since he was an aristocrat of the 7th century BCE.
I think that is actually no, I don't think you drifted at all. I think that the metaphysical beliefs absolutely have an impact. Well, has an impact on how one is living their life. That's for sure. But also, in this particular instance, how one governs directly, because it's your opinion on human nature. So, and how you see human nature. So the types of laws that you're going to implement, or even systems that you'll put in place, will dictate what you believe about human beings, essentially human behavior. Is it inherently good or bad? So I think that that was an excellent point. But now, one area that I got to be honest, I was a little bit. I didn't bring it up at the time because I didn't want to waste any more time. You can be a Jinzu and not be in a state of Ren, but you can be in a state of Ren, and not a Jinzu. Did I remember that correctly?
Forgive me to interrupt, but you can be a Junzi without having Ran. But if you have Ran, you are necessarily a Junzi.
Okay, so okay, and
because
that's something that I don't.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I think of the practices of a Jinzu is constantly cultivating virtue. Right.
Absolutely. I would say that Junzi, as I often come back to some elements by the book, okay, because I'm not saying that we have to repeat what is by the book like parrots, but I want to say that there are specific stuff or words that correlate exactly with the epistemological development. The word, the Junzi, a gentleman, well, first, Junzi means Jun is Lord and Zi is son. Okay, so Junzi means the son of a lord. So basically, Junzi simply means that you are a member of the hereditary nobility. Okay, and it has the exact meaning than gentleman in English, because let's not forget that gentleman in English in the past was a word indicating someone who was born within the hereditary nobility. Okay, and later on, the word gentleman has been expanded to everyone, meaning a person of refined behavior or an educated person. So the same phenomenon happened in China. Junzi was first used as a word simply indicating that someone was born within the hereditary nobility. With Confucius appear two types of Junzi, meaning that the Junzi still exists as a member of the hereditary nobility till the end of the Chinese Empire a century ago in 1912. But from Confucius, let's say 25 centuries ago, Junzi also means the man making an effort to evolve epistemologically. So Junzi has the general meaning of someone living in the upper trigram, okay? Someone having his behavior guided by beauty, goodness, and truth, or in the human behavior, guided by the inner sense of justice, of humanity, of valor, and of wisdom. On a very down-to-earth, by the book answer, okay? The line 4, the upper trigram is formed by line 4, 5, and 6. Okay, line 4 is named the xian, meaning the worthy people, the people capable to do stuff, the skillful people. And when you have the line 4, 5, you are junzi, meaning you have a ran, okay, that famous brand of Confucianism, meaning that you have a goodness as translated by valor and humanity. And by valor, it's not only valor in physical fight, it's also valor in moral fortitude, or valor in the exploration of reality, of inner reality or outside reality. So it has also a link to the exploration of technique and sciences and of the arts. And finally, at the line 6, if you have wisdom, 智慧, you are shengran, meaning you are sage. Okay, I'm sorry to come back to that because often in the paragraphs of the Analect, you have paradoxical statements that have to be discussed beyond the by the book answer, because you need to know the by the book answers to appreciate the paragraphs that are inviting you to discuss the reality of the upper trigram beyond the answer by the book. That's why I took the liberty to repeat a second time the answer by the book for the line 4, 5, and 6.
Thank you for that. Yeah, because that actually was a point. Okay, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to add that it's not from the Analects is only a second source of that mentality or that belief in the upper trigram. The original source, if I take written documents, okay, because the oral tradition can be older than written document, but the written document talking about those stuff, the upper trigram, is the Shi Yi, the 10 Wings, which is the philosophical appendix of the Yi Ching, the Book of Change, which once again is the first Confucian classic. I stop here.
Yeah, that was actually, I very much appreciate you clearing that up for me, because that was the one point in the evening I actually wanted to stop and talk about it a little bit more, but it was getting a little bit late and I was wanting to at least get to verse 13. whatever. Did anybody else find anything interesting about, again, even the idea of the complete man?
Just to remind you, there's the positive psychology thing starting in a minute, so I'm going to have to disappear and join that one.
Are you saying, why don't you just say, this is not interesting enough? I'm actually going to go.
This is not interesting enough. You've overrun by 30 minutes. No, I'm just kidding.
No,
Hey,
that's quite all right.
hold on, Joe. Can I just interrupt here? Can you check your chat? There's an important mail there, considering what you sent to me. I don't know your first name, sir, but you sent me a message, and I just responded.
Okay.
I just want you to have access to the message before you leave for the next meeting.
Okay, I'll quick read. It's quite a long one.
Yeah, thank you.
But in any case, well, I mean, I think that there's still some things here. I mean, that we can talk about, and I think in specifically with number 10. To be poor without murmuring is difficult. To be rich without being proud is easy. I think that that's like actually pretty profound in and of itself. Anybody wish to comment on that?
Well, I would like to say that it's one of the major teaching of Confucianism, which make a very stark distinction between inferior emotions and superior emotions. And here we have two inferior emotions, resentment and arrogance. But those two inferior emotions are contextualized, and it's deep and full of common sense. If you're poor and you have hardships in your life, it's just you only human to feel from time to time resentment. Okay, so if you're poor but without resentment, well, it means that you are quite epistemologically developed. If you are average in your epistemological development, it would be only natural to have some resentment because of your hardship coming from your poverty. But if you're wealthy, meaning you have a good life and even you have a shining life, it is much more easier to be courteous and to not to be too arrogant to others. Because once again, one of the major teachings of Confucianism is to show courtesy to people who are less favored than you, either in power position or in wealth or in hierarchy, etc.
Yeah, I think oftentimes, it is. I mean, it does explore the idea of the difficulties that come with both wealth and poverty in particular. But I mean, obviously, poverty is something that is
You've got to remember, these men
is much more difficult. So, but I'm sorry, Kay, I unmuted you. Do you want to say something?
No, I haven't. Later, I would like to at the end of the meeting. I need to explain myself because there's actually a little bit of there was an issue earlier at another meeting, so it was a safety issue. I'm not rude. I didn't intend to interrupt twice tonight, gentlemen.
Okay. But in any case, there are challenges in every aspect of life, and I think sometimes we look at people and say that their lives are easy, and it's simply not true. When that's my opinion, is that to be rich without being proud is easy. I mean, I don't necessarily think that's true.
It's interesting.
I don't.
Because I know a lot of wealthy and well-to-do people, and most of the time they are quite relaxed in their interaction with other people because they have an easy life or
Right.
it's very rare in my life that I met someone who is rich who is really a jerk.
Oh, you should come to England, mate. God.
Oh, I went to England many times and I have the pretensions having talked to many rich people in England. And maybe I'm not sensitive enough, but I don't feel that they were arrogant. I didn't feel that they were arrogant.
Arrogant is in our passports. It's kind of you can't be a British subject unless you're arrogant. It's kind of built in. Rich or poor, all of us.
Yeah, but maybe I have a personality that accept that other people can be proud of their heritage or of their history. And I don't feel it as an attack against me in the sense that they can feel proud of their history and so on. But there's no reason why I should feel attacked by that. No?
Oh, yeah, true.
I just think that I don't, I don't discount the fact that it's much harder to live in a position of scarcity where everything is a concern. However, what I will say is that there's this misnomer that I think that yes, wealthy people have means, but they also have struggles, a lot of struggles. So in certain
Absolutely.
cases where I've not, and that's why I think it kind of to be rich without being proud is easy. I don't know. I
I
think
would
pride is
say,
actually part of it.
yeah, but how do you, now here we have to define what is pride, okay? Because here pride, if you understand that, let's not forget the word is arrogance, okay? It's not pride. The word is arrogance, meaning that you feel superior and you will show that you are superior, or you will try to humiliate people by behavior that could be more or less subtle, right? That would be the difference between pride and arrogance. Someone can be proud in a healthy manner, meaning that self-confidence,
Right.
self-confidence,
Right.
being chill or easygoing, okay, etc., can reflect a pride that is healthy and would not be the arrogance, which is much more an attitude than a behavior, which goals is to make the other feel inferior or inadequate. It's not the same.
Agreed. Yeah. So the pride aspect of things, there could be pride is like if you look at it from an Aristotelian golden mean, which is actually something they talk about the golden mean here too. The opposite of pride is humility, but you don't want to be completely humble, and you don't want to be completely prideful. You want to be somewhere in the middle. If you're completely humble, you'd actually always be selling yourself short or be almost to a point of dysfunctional. But you do want a proper amount of humility that that allows you to appreciate what the things around you and to kind of understand that that you're not the only person in the world. The world doesn't revolve around you. But the other aspect of this is this extreme pride too, and that's dangerous.
Yeah, that would be called arrogant. That would be called arrogance.
And that's the interesting point about this. And I don't know to be rich without being arrogant is easy. I think that when you have skewed perceptions of reality, that arrogance is actually something that can occur very easily.
Yeah. Because what
In
is
my
to be
opinion.
wealthy? What is to be wealthy after all? To be wealthy means simply that you have more money or more physical assets, but it doesn't prevent, it doesn't help you, or doesn't protect you from the usual suffering of the human condition. You can be rejected by someone that you love. You can be not accepted by certain persons that you wish to be your friends. So, and even if your money can buy a superficial friendship, it's not true friendship anyway. So, wealth would give you comfort and a certain protection against the physical sufferings because you don't have enough money or physical assets. But you're not protected from most of the serious sufferings of the human condition anyway.
Very good. Yeah. Kay, do you wish to comment?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Sorry, I've been multitasking. I'm looking for Quan. I love listening to you. Thank you so much for sharing here. Okay, so Joe, something that you had said. Here is a little bit of your blind spot. Because you've been raised in a patriarchal, predatory capitalist society, an autocratic society, a theocratic society. Well, certainly not a democratic republic, really. I don't think so. I don't, it seems that you're struggling to see how, I think you said something to the effect of wealth. You can't see how someone could be very wealthy without arrogance.
No,
Am I
I
right?
can see it, but I can see it, but I don't necessarily think it's that
Easy. I think
easy to, yeah.
Okay. The thing is, without that condition, if you dropped that conditioning, if you just chose to see, well, see things more, I don't know fully, of course, how you see things, but I don't believe that someone who is not a dark tetrad, triad, etc., that I often speak about with you, someone who lives with a healthy fear of consequence and a sense of regret, remorse, feeling, love, someone who does allow themselves to live toward the love end of the human spectrum rather than the predatory end, the way that we're headed now, massively, almost completely. There's hardly anything toward the love end anymore. If you are someone who is capable of all that you seem to be toward the positive, toward the love end, then absolutely without this conditioning, you would clearly see how if for people who are absolutely wealthy in the ways that matter, including, sure, right now, yes, including economically, financially, or even let's say assets. So doesn't matter, liquid, otherwise doesn't matter. You must be humble to really see what's going on and to be truly wealthy and permit what's happening. To be a human being, to be actually human, a humane person, a Homo sapien, regardless of sex, gender identity, so-called race, etc. It would take I just don't see how someone could be humane and wealthy and be arrogant, because they would have to be assisting the world to heal in order to be humane. they would have to be caught up so much in the propaganda, in the conditioning, that they would be such a slave to it, that to also, to be arrogant but wealthy, truly wealthy, I don't see it. I see that it is disorder.
Well,
I really do see that.
I don't disagree with you, because you're defining wealthy as true wealth. But
true.
this
Well,
says
we're talking about Confucius in this. I mean, I thought we were talking about life. Someone also brought up Sun Tzu. Thank you to that person. But no, Joe, come on. This is a good conversation. I mean, I've been listening, and I would like to complete this thought, if you don't mind. You brought up wealth, and we're talking about Eastern philosophy, and they don't play, right? I mean, they're serious about the topic, so I'm being as well, and I'm saying I respect you so much, so I'm looking at this as if you meant true wealth, which, okay, sure, in this capitalist world, yes, we need land, and we need an income, business, etc., if we can manage. But so am I misunderstanding you then? I'm listening to you on a higher level, perhaps, than you're just.
I'm reading the exact words in that passage.
Oh, I was
To
listening
be rich
you.
without being proud is easy.
Yeah, but I still take it to mean
rich.
Okay.
I don't see that as being. So you're talking. You're more speaking to what it means to live a good life, which is what Confucius gets to. But that is true. That is what Confucius is speaking to. But this particular passage, without a doubt, he is talking about the difference between someone with scarcity and someone with excess. And he is equating these emotions with those two.
You mean specifically financial wealth?
In verse 10, chapter 14, absolutely.
I apologize. I didn't realize that. Sorry.
That's so, yeah. I mean, and while within the idea of wealth, the way you were defining it would probably fit into Confucius's perspective on wealth, but it's a specific passage where he even is referring specifically to monetary means.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I agree, because the context is clear. Okay, he was opposing a poor person to a wealthy person, but in the physical sense of the word wealthy. And once again, there is an asymmetry. Okay, if you are poor and you have all the hardships of being poor and you don't have resentment, it shows that you are quite advanced epistemologically. But it's much easier being wealthy and having the good life, the easy life. Is much easier to be courteous to the other when you have the good life and the easy life. I would say that the rich or the wealthy people, in the physical sense of the term, who are completely impolite and arrogant to poorer people, I would say they are in the minority. You have to be really stupid and imbecilic to be arrogant to poorer people if you have the good life.
Okay. So,
Joe,
yeah, I mean, anyway, go ahead, Mark.
there was also that passage, I think it was in 13, where Confucius was contrasting the great man with the little man. And he said
Yes.
that the great man is gracious when someone of a lower rank is serving him. I'm paraphrasing. And the little man expects the one serving him to abide by all of the rituals very precisely.
That's correct. I forget which, let me see, which one that was. The number, no, the superior man, not always virtuous. No, that's not it. Which one is it? Let's see if I have it in my notes. I think, yeah, I thought it was number 6 for some reason. Come on, do you remember which one it was?
No, but what Mart said made me think to the fact that to a paragraph, maybe at the other chapter, that it's easy to serve a superior man, but difficult to please him. But it is easy to please an inferior man or petty man, but it is difficult to serve him, because the petty man would precisely expect that you would do everything perfectly, but it would be easy to please him because you just need to be fawning or to be flattering him, and it would be easy to please him. But the superior man would forgive some mistakes in your service, but it's not easy to please him, because to please a superior man, you have to be a virtuous person. You have to go into the epistemological development, and to be sincere in your epistemological journey is much more difficult than to say some flattering words.
I think it's Jason's translation that actually used the word smaller man. Or
yes,
it was Jason's translation, because I don't have it in mind. The only one I can think of is superior man, and yet not always virtuous. There have been, alas, but there has never been a mean man and at the same time virtuous. No, that's not it.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Just out of
virtuous.
curiosity, did they actually have any women back then? It's all men, isn't it?
Yeah, but
Had they,
for
had they,
Well, I mean,
had they not
I don't think
invented it?
for simplification,
no.
when you hear superior, think upper trigram. Okay, when you hear inferior, think lower trigram. When you hear virtuous man or gentleman, think upper trigram. And when you hear petty man or unprincipled man, think lower trigram. Okay, that is the absolute division in classical Confucianist teaching. Are you motivated by sense perception, your emotions, or your ego, or are you motivated by beauty, goodness, and truth? Okay, that is the dividing line in Confucianist teaching.
Mark, do you have a translation that says little man?
I don't have it in front of me, but Quan certainly did remember it word for word.
Yeah, it's not in this chapter. It's probably the other one, but I don't remember where exactly. We discussed it last week or the week before. But I would say that let's not be too mesmerized by the fact that sometimes Xiao Ren is translated as the small man, sometimes as the little man, sometimes as the unprincipled man, sometimes as the inferior man. It simply means the person living in the lower trigram, as opposed to the gentleman or the superior man or the principal man, the person living in the upper trigram.
Well, I mean, overall for this passage I think that there's a few things that, a few themes that I can see that were, for me, taken away. One is the types of language that you use. There's a very important theme that you see in these chapters that we've covered here this evening. The importance of virtue over skill, even that becomes a situation where if you were to have people that are unvirtuous in a position of power, then it would be obviously not beneficial to the state. How does one the idea of how does one manage one's emotions despite their economic condition, as well as defining what a complete man is. And I think that wasn't really clear to me, but it's still it was a little bit different than as like when Jason went back over it, what he explained it in modern terms. It became a little bit more clear, but it's just like taking the best attributes of everybody. What's that?
Really, really be chill.
I'm sorry.
Be chill.
Be chill. Are you?
Anyway. I'm sorry, Joe.
Yeah. No problem. No. So I think defining what a complete man is. So yeah, I mean, those are my takeaways. If anybody has to share theirs really briefly, I mean, again, also the idea of boldness and speech being linked to one another and how they're actually related to the how being bold and succinct with your speech is actually essential, but it's also essential to maintain your character in order for your speech to actually matter. Well, if there aren't any other takeaways, we will tomorrow will be, I'll just do some really quick announcements. Tomorrow we have tomorrow is, I believe Comprehensivist Wednesdays, and actually it will be covering George Lakoff's book, Metaphors. And then we'll be doing Poetics, the birth of aesthetics, on Thursday. And Friday, The Power Myth by Joseph Campbell. And Saturday, we'll be continuing our Louis Sullivan series. And on Sunday, we will have Don Bridell back. So he's going to finish one of his presentations on field theory. So I'm actually really looking forward to that one. And I'll be, yeah, I'm excited actually about that one. But, and then the Asian Philosophies meetup will be back in what, on the 21st? Okay. So we'll keep an eye out. I think it's already been cross-posted, but anyway, thanks everybody for hanging out tonight. Take care.